Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Well, somehow, some way we made it, Panozzo. I don't know how. If the people at home only knew the shit show that we just had
Well, it's the
over the last
UK.
15 minutes.
It's the UK. Everything's on the wrong side over here, so I was probably just using the wrong side of the buttons.
It wasn't. Oh, I didn't mean to bring that in right now.
Throw me under the bus.
Yeah, here we go. Well, in fairness to me, I haven't had coffee yet or any kind of caffeine, but it's Mosconi Cup day, Mike, and you are out in the UK, buddy. Tell me how it is out there before we jump on in to the lineups.
It's bone chilling cold. No,
Is it really?
Well, cold over here is just different because it's always so damp, and it just gets into your bones. It's just like raw. So yesterday it was like 45 degrees and wet. That's the worst weather in the world to me. But today it's sunny, it's nice, it's dry, but it's it's all Moscone Cup anticipation going on.
Shout out to our event sponsor for the week, up top, Fort Worth Billiards. Albert, visit billiardsuperstore.com for all your needs. Mike, the lineups are out, Mike, but you were interviewing some of the players over the last few days. Give me the vibe, give me the feel, give me the nerves, because they'll say all the right things. The press conference, they'll say all the right things when you ask them questions. But what's your take, having been at a few of these over the last 40 years?
It's the same apprehension every time. It's like, they say the right things. They're confident. They're bonding. They're all this. They're all that. Yeah. But you can just tell by the tone in their voice that
body language.
Yeah, there's nervousness, and it's not like nervousness that you're going to fail. It's just, all right, let's go. Let's hit a ball. Let's get started. You get to the point where you just want to, rack them and run. So I think all the players and the coaches are kind of at that point now. I think the matchroom crew is at that point now. I think the fans who are in town are at that point now. It's like, okay, let's get this party started.
Well, the party's about to start in about, I think, 3 hours from now is whenever kickoff is going to happen. The 30th anniversary of this year's Moscone Cup. You guys can check out all the action on DAZN if you're here in the U.S., or I think Matchroom's got, I don't know, a million other options you guys can check out as well. So, let's talk lineups, Mike, because I'm looking through from last year and I look at Team Europe, and it's very much the same, Mike. There's not a whole lot of difference there. I mean, we know it's the same 5 guys, so obviously, but there's different variations that you can have within that. And It's surprising because I look back at last year's day one and Europe was down 3-1, and that was without a Federer, without a Wolford on that team. And Federer, we know for sure, is an upgrade over last year's lineup. So give me your thoughts, Mike, as to, from the European side, sending out that same variation within those 4 matches.
Yeah, well, to me, it wasn't a surprise at all. I mean, to me, you knew that they were going to come out with the Spanish duo, and you knew that they were going to come out with filler and singles. So that leaves, Jason and who's Jason paired up with?
Albin,
right?
because they have to play one.
Everybody's got to play the first day. So I kind of had a feeling they were going to do the same thing. And Ralph Eckert had even mentioned in passing a couple times about how when he was talking to players, he was going to talk to them about things like the revenge factor. Okay, so I think he was kind of looking for opportunities to get players who maybe lost the match last year to get another shot at the same guy.
That's interesting, Mike. I mean, that's something that fans pick up on. That's something that fans will try to find angles to motivate. That's interesting, though, to hear that from a coach and a rookie coach at that where he's looking at that from that perspective to try to maybe light a fire under their ass.
Yeah, well, what he said was he was going to talk to the players and say, is this something you want to do? Is this something that appeals to? Do you want to, do you want another shot at this guy? And I think and so I think they thought, well, we'll just try out the same, runners we're going to try out the first day and see what happens. For the U.S., the lineup, I knew that they were going to throw Sky at filler. You knew that was going to happen. So then it was just how did they, what kind of pairings were they going to go with first? I didn't think that they would go with Shane and Federer on the first day. So you were going to have to split up the other two guys because, to me, it's smart to do it this way because the first day is always a little bit jittery, a little bit getting used to the cloth, getting used to the crowd, getting used to getting your nerves under control. So, traditionally, not everybody plays their greatest on the first day.
Yeah.
So then to me, I wouldn't risk throwing out one of your best teams right out of the gate and have them not play well. So, so I understand Ralph's idea of throwing out, Francisco and David. Okay, give them a shot. But I also understand Jeremy's idea of let's mix things up on the first day. Put your quote number 4 and number 5 guys, split them up with a couple of your top 3 guys, and let Sky take on filler and singles. So
I think it's a little ballsy for me, Mike, on the American side, and it's that Wolford and Federer match that I'm referencing mainly. And here's the reason why. When I look back at last year's, the American side is basically the same except for the fact that you have Oscar and Earl were switched with now Wolford and Federer, right? Literally, they're switched off the team, and now they're switched in this doubles lineup as well in day number 1. But here's the difference, Mike. Earl is a very well-seasoned and decorated Mosconi Cup player. Oscar had been on that stage 2 times prior. You have 2 guys out there in Federer and Wolford who have never taken off their floaties in the big pool, Mike. Right? They've only had that safety net. You know what I mean, Mike? So you are literally sending them out there completely like they've never been through it. I don't care what you'll say about Federer. That's the part that has me really scratching my head, and especially with guys that you have a really big question mark. You're sending them out there all by themselves to go swimming, and that can be tough because then I wonder what the psyche can be like if the wheels do fall off, Mike.
Yeah, well, it's any of these is going to be a risk. It's funny that you mentioned the floaties thing because in the hotel they have a pool, and they had a lesson this morning with parents and their infant kids throwing their kids in the pool and teaching them how to swim.
Welcome to the Moscone Cup. So,
and I'm like, okay, here we go. Pick up their floaties, throw them in the deep end, and see what happens. So, and it is a little ballsy for day 1 because that the crowd is going to feed on Federer to start with, and they're going to go after Shane Wolford as being a rookie as well. So, I'm sure it's something that Jeremy talked to the players about. He didn't surprise either guy with that this morning with his pick. So it's a matter of those guys saying, I think we can, we'll handle it. We'll be okay. And it could be a great move. If they come out and steal one from David and Francisco, how good would that look and how much confidence would that give them to play? So, it's interesting. It's the last match of the day. You don't want to be out there if you're down 2-1 or 3-0. That's
the other thing, Mike. That's the other thing because let's say,
testy.
I mean, testy is not even the word for it, Mike. I mean, good sayonara. See you later. See you next year. Because if you're down 3-0, if you're the Americans and you're down 3-0, and then you're sending out 2 rookies out there all by themselves. That's when I'd be shocked, if they were to pull off or be any kind of competitive because you'd have the weight on the world. I mean, Federer has made no bones about it. He's very much a me guy. He's very much, he's never been that team guy. Very much like Shane in that aspect, Mike. So how is that weight of feeling everybody else on your shoulders and knowing that, oh shit, we're in this spot now. How is that going to affect him? So many question marks. I agree. It's got upside for sure. It's got upside, Mike, but I just think it's a little rough. It's a little rough. So
you think you would have thrown him out first doubles?
Yeah, I like that a little better because worst case scenario, your worst case scenario, you're down 2-0. But having that pressure of being down 1-0 is a different feeling, I'd imagine, versus walking into that arena being down 3-0, or even 2-1, Mike. It's just it weighs differently, and especially because, look, I know the phenom that Federer is, right? I'm not discrediting anything that he's done up until this point to get to this stage, but any player that'll tell you, that I'm ready for it, or this is I'm gonna be okay, it's bullshit. You heard Barry in the press conference by himself, just say, hey, listen, these guys are gonna go shit their pants, but I mean, which was one of the many treats of that press conference, by the way, by Barry. But he's very much right, Mike. It doesn't matter how great you are; it's a different animal, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do like sending them out early, and one, getting that pairing out of the way, and two, letting them take a swing at it. So and you've got the other three guys, Shane, Tyler, and Sky coming out before then. They're supposed to hold up their end too. You're not supposed to get to that last match down 3-0 if you've got your big hitters going. So if you got your big hitters going and you're down 3-0, your fourth pairing isn't a problem.
Well, look, after the teams matches a roll of the dice. Whatever happens, right? It's going to be a little. It's going to be a little gaffy. There's no really rhyme or reason to figure out like who's going to go in what's in what spot. If I don't know how Jeremy plans on playing it, or how they decide who goes first, second, or third. I don't give a shit. Send out the rookies first. Let them just go out there, get it over with, get their feet wet, and let's move on. Which I doubt will happen now that I think about it, because they'll probably play them on the back end of that team's match themselves. But when it comes to that Shaw and Albin match versus Tyler and Shane, I love the lineup from the Team USA aspect. Just putting those two together. I think they have more chemistry than people necessarily give them credit for. I feel like Tyler has earned the trust of not just everyone, but most of all, Shane. I feel like not just because they've been traveling together and all these things over the last few months, Mike, but I think Tyler's gotten Shane's respect, where I don't think he's necessarily had that in years past. Like maybe they won't say it publicly, but just not from like a personal perspective, but like just as far as where you are on the totem pole of professional pool players,
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like now he's got faith more in his guy. The Albin question mark across the other side is going to be a fair one as well. We know what he did in Hanoi, Mike, but can these two Hanoi finalists follow that up? We know what Jason is in December, but I don't know that I'm still 1,000,000% sold on what we're going to get out of Albin.
No, I agree. If you looked at Team Europe and asked, tried to pick where that one question mark was going to be, as far as the players go, that's probably where you'd point. Yeah.
And he just seemed like, I love the honesty, and this is nothing that was new for him personally, but just like being more open about it. And it was that, just how mental that Albin can be. And we know he can get tilted a little bit, right? But it's very much a seesaw for him in some regard. And but he's seasoned, he's decorated, he's been on every big stage the sport has to offer. And going out there with Mr. Reliable, Jason is going to be in your favor. I love that, like, head to head. It's like, it reminds me of just two Rams just going at it, coming right out the gate. Not for the sake of the back end, but I love these two guys going and matching up. A match number 3, Mike, which is going to be the battle of the MVPs, depending on which team wins, right? I feel like if Josh were to get a victory here, this will put him in prime position for the rest of the Cup to come away with another MVP. And the same were to go with Sky, because we know what Sky can do. And these are two Alpha A1 Mosconi Cup players as well. Mike, give me your thoughts on that matchup, repeat of last year.
Win the leg. win the leg in that matchup, because there's a pretty good chance it's going to go 4-4.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's I feel like from a breaking perspective, we haven't seen maybe Josh do as well on the matchroom stage versus others. So whereas Sky had been trending in a much more uphill manner relative to years past. So how much is that break going to be weighted? We know that it's 9-ball, and it's, the most important shot on effing earth, So, but both guys are just stupid clutch, Mike.
They are
unbelievable. Just how they play.
Going to be a little interested to see how Sky plays, because he really was, we didn't see a lot of him the last quarter of the year.
Yeah.
So,
it's
battle tested is a big thing in this sport. So it's going to be interesting to see how he comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this many times, and it's not just for my opinion. It's from asking a lot of top European players. Who do you respect the most? And most of them, all of them, for that matter, will say Sky, and it's because of his December performances and just how much he can. He's very much, ironically enough, filler-esque in that regard. He plays big shots and big moments. He's not afraid of the stage, of the spotlight, of just embracing whatever it gives him. You know what I mean? He doesn't play timid by any means. He's a very exciting player to watch as well. I think this is where it gets super sensitive for me, though, for the Americans, because of what you got at the very end, like we talked about, to start with Mike.
Yeah.
So
a little more pressure on Sky to come through for sure.
Well, I mean, yeah. Look, we know the Europeans are our favorite, Mike. And I don't think that, like, if it were, let's say, 2-0 the other way, 2-0 the other, if it was 2-0, okay, you got Sky and Filler. Neither one of those two guys in particular are going to necessarily crack under pressure. We've seen them stand tall year after year. But if it's 3-0, who would you rather send out there? The World Cup of Pool champions or two?
Well,
what I mean?
no matter who you line up Shane Wolford and Federer against as a team, they're going to be the underdog because they're both, first timers out there. So, whether it's Francisco and, I don't know if I would have been any less worried if it was, Shaw and Albin. But, they're still going to have to go out there and show that they can get past.
I mean, you can't pick who you go against, but let's say what's like a Wolford and Federer versus David and Albin. No disrespect to them, but let's say that was the matchup that they went up against them with.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably like that a little bit better, but you knew, and Jeremy knew before this day started that they were coming with Team Spain. Everybody knew it.
I'll tell you, I got to watch a lot of these Americans play last week out there in Dallas, courtesy of QTech. And Jeremy was kind of tinkering around with a few Scotch doubles, and I tried to get a bunch, but my phone just ran out of memory. And I was supposed to have like 2 more matches saved on my phone, and the damn thing just filled up. But one of them was this matchup that you see out there in Federer and Wolford. And I want to say they were playing, I think it was Shane and
Federer.
Shane and Tyler, I think, okay. Mike, is who it was. I think it was Shane and Tyler. And I'll be honest with you, they had a lot more chemistry than what I expected. They were able to execute a lot better than what I thought.
And that's the other thing that we don't know about is what did Jeremy see? I mean, they've been together for almost 10 days now. What has Jeremy seen? Right. He had to see something that made him confident enough to pair them up on day one and throw them at the end of the day.
Plus, you got to get it over with. That's the other thing, right?
You do, but if that was the case, then I would rather have him in match 2. But so again, we don't know. The coach sees a lot more than we do. All we see is names. So right. I will give him the benefit of the doubt until we look at it a day later and say that was a really bad decision. like we did,
the Monday morning
with Earl.
Monday morning quarterback. Well, I mean, Earl was the train wreck from the beginning, and but here's the deal, even with an Earl that was a liability, the Americans were still up 3-1, and I would say that that in some aspects this American team has been upgraded, so you gotta, I think anything less than a split is going to be a massive disappointment.
Yeah.
If you're the Americans, I think you're kind of hoping to get out of there, with a 2-2, and then let's get a good night's rest, a good dinner, and come out and get ready to send out all of our heavy hitters on day number 2, Mike, because I feel like that's where you're going to go and start making some decent moves.
Right. Well, we talked to Jeremy beforehand, and he said, I asked him about keys to the event, and he said last match of the day is a key.
Momentum.
Okay, so he knew that going into picking this pairing for his last set of the day. So he's got a feeling, and we'll see how that works out.
Well, I mean, obviously, what happened in the last week definitely played a big role as far as him putting those two together and in that spot. And look, Federer, Federer's a world champion. Federer's won everything on earth. So he's obviously way more battle tested than probably anybody out of those four, anyone except for Francisco. So that'll serve him well, and will be that ace up his sleeve to fall back on. But it's going to be interesting, Mike, and especially with these rookies that as they're being dubbed, just how well they're going to be able to perform on that stage.
Yeah.
A lot of people like Shane for being a straight shooter. He's had some big signature wins in spots. I haven't seen it on a TV table of any kind, like with any kind of, consistency, if you want to say that.
Yeah.
But that straight shooting part's going to serve him well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I tell you, Mike, when you mentioned Germany just a little bit ago, my thought goes to Ralph. And I tell you what, from Ralph looking like Ralph was on a ship, right? And he was on that ship, and he's looking out into the future, and there's a big cloud and thunder and lightning, and it just looked like the worst possible thing you can run into. And then all of a sudden,
the sun came out.
Albin, the clouds break, right? Albin gets into a final of Hanoi. Jason wins that event, right? Your 4 and 5
All's
just
well
get picked basically for you. You're pretty much putting out Laylee's lineup from last year.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Like, you got 5 veterans in there. You're not having to worry or coddle anyone or pacify any big egos. You're just trying, you just gotta don't fuck it up.
That was right, Mike? And I've said that before. Ralph, the beauty of this for Ralph was that it is a situation of, here's the same guys you have last year. Don't screw it up.
And here's the blueprint.
Screw it up. Now you can play.
Here's the blueprint of how to win.
Yeah. So here's what we did last year, and we were down 3-1 on the first day and still won, relatively comfortably. So, he's just gonna. It's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of days what kind of changes or alterations he makes based on how the first day goes, because I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to really watch closely over the next couple of days to see who's really running Team Europe. Because it's either
I would think Ralph, it's Jason.
It's either Ralph or it's Jason.
I would think it's Jason.
And then when I saw, okay, we're getting together 5 days early in Scotland, I'm like, okay, there's number one on this side of the ledger. So we'll see. I mean, you don't want to get hung out to dry if you're Ralph Eckert by someone else's decisions. Most people like to run something, want to be into control of those decisions, because if they're going to get let go or fired or get chastised.
I get that, but this is completely safe though, Mike. Like, this is like, let's say worst case scenario, you're down 3-1. Well, you know what? I'm down 3-1 if I'm Ralph, right? But these guys, I've seen them weather a storm, right?
Yeah.
So, and they've all done it individually, and they've done it together as a unit, literally as a unit, a year ago. So, that's where I feel like he's got a bit of a cushion and not have to worry so much. But like, if some strange way, some odd way that they end up, getting in a hole, which I don't see happening, too deep, then it's like, okay, now that's when, you got to go and earn your paycheck here, because you got to have to rally the troops and make some pivotal decisions within this tournament, to put yourself back in the driver's seat.
I think we all want to see enough pressure on them at some point in this event where he's got to make some decisions,
which the Americans have the ability to do, Mike. They do. Now, whether or not that's going to happen is a whole other situation, because there's a couple of guys on Team USA who can get a little tilted themselves, who can get a little high or low and wear it on there. I'm not going to say any names, but, SPD comes to mind. You know what I mean? So, but you're gonna have to be able to handle adversity. There's a lot of guys who have been there. Obviously, Shane's been there 17 years, however long it's been. Seems like an eternity, and still playing at an incredibly elite level. But those 5 guys, man, like on the team blue and yellow, are no joke, man. You know, absolutely no joke at all. But you know what I'm hopeful for, Mike, is that we have a situation like you said where they have to face adversity, and then you're going to see what these guys are really made of. Because when you should have been stealing and you're down 3-1, and then you really should have lost on day 3 and been in a hole, you would have seen the makeup of that team. But that's with an Earl on the team who was a liability, like I mentioned before. Now, if it's the other way around, or let's say that happens, right? But now you have Federer on there. I think you might see a little more shake in their back arm than what they've had in years past, Mike.
Yeah, well, a lot of it's going to depend on if you get to that day 3 or day 4. A lot of it's going to depend on how Federer looked day 1 to day 2. So, you know, this is going to be let's get the rust out, let's get the kinks out, let's see who feels good, who's confident, who's stroking the ball good, because it'll have a lot to do with how you plan tomorrow.
Give me the rundown, and then I got to run to the gym, Mike. You already got me late by 20 minutes. Put me on tilt over here.
We win the team match because that's what we do in the last couple of years.
Yep.
You know what? I like us coming out of the day 2 and 2.
Give me the 2 and 2. Besides, well, obviously you got the one for the team. So what other matchup is Team USA going to win?
Sky.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. If I'm looking at it, Mike, and I'm not trying to go out on a limb here by any means, I think it'll be 3-1 in favor of the Europeans. And ironically enough, I think it'll be the rookies on the back end that'll come out with the victory. I think
they're going to come out with a victory being down 3-0.
I do, and I know I've kind of argued against. Well, I've argued against that the entire show, but here's the logic: is that, you know, Federer and David respect the hell out of Federer. You know, they really do, and they know the kind of dangerous guy that he is. And I think Shane will just be able to, you know, don't do anything dumb, you know. Yeah. And I think he'll play the right shots. I think they'll communicate well. And like I said, I saw them play with a decent amount of chemistry that I think can get them through it in a race to 5. And hopefully they can just handle the nerves, Mike, because those Europeans, I mean, I don't even care about watching pool. I just want to watch the crowd. Like, if I can just get a camera on panning left to right on the crowd, that's really all I want to see, you know? Yeah. So we know it's going to be a firestorm. The Americans are as prepared as they're going to be, as are the Europeans. It's day 1 of the Mosconi Cup. Mike, give me your overall prediction while we're here so that we can have that on the record.
I like the U.S. 11-8.
How did I was literally going to say I know what Panozzo is going to say, and it was going to be 11-8 in favor of the Americans. No, I'm going Team Europe. And I'm going Team Europe a little bit heavy, Mike. I'm going Europe 11. I was going to say 11-5. I'm going Europe 11-5. Yeah, I'm going real heavy. I just don't know. There's a lot of question marks, Mike, and I think a lot more like underneath, you know, a lot more going on behind the scenes than I think people realize, and you're going to really see what these guys are made of. So
yeah, it can certainly happen, and my feeling is either if the U.S. can stay close, they're going to win.
Well, who's the key to the Americans winning, Mike? Like, give me the not so obvious answer.
Well, no, it's got to be it's Federer. Federer's the key to the U.S. winning.
It is
because you need to. I mean, one of the keys, of course, is I've always said you need to get 2 or 3 points out of Tyler and Shane Wolford. Right? You need to get at least one singles win, and when Tyler and Shane Wolford play doubles, they need to win. Okay, you need to get a couple wins from them where they're not playing with somebody else, and then Federer's got to prove that third head on the monster makes a difference.
Well, it better be. There's a lot of hopes and expectations.
There are a lot of weight on
Federer, and that equipment change. I'm right now for both Fran and for Federer. I'm just not necessarily 100%. You know. Like it's a little, it's got me a little nervous, if I'm being honest with you. Got a lot of friends on both teams, so obviously I don't want to see anyone dog it too bad. Although from being in this chair, dogging it's a little a little welcomed at times. I'm going to try to do a watch party, you guys. So we got roughly around 375 people watching, which means we'll probably try to do something where we just have a live chat going. You guys can come in here and cut up and talk about the match and have a little home away from home to come in and talk pool with all the other degenerates that are in here in the chat. So, Mike, I appreciate your time. Thank God you finally figured out technology over in the UK.
Listen,
we appreciate
you calling me out on technology is kind of that's a cold slap right there.
It's the pot calling the kettle black. That's for sure. No, but we appreciate you for coming on, Mike. Hopefully you can help us out, get some other little short interviews and fun stuff throughout the week. We're going to try to get some players on as well. And Mike, you got a show coming up in a little bit as well. Is that right?
Yeah, probably about 11:30 your time, Central Time. We'll have a BD Live show from Alexander Palace.
You guys make sure and go check it out. Go support Mike and everything he's got going on out there. We will be live here in about a couple hours whenever this show starts, and we'll test out this watch party. So we appreciate all of y'all for hanging out. I got to get the hell out of here, so we will see you guys later, and enjoy the Moscone.